Welcome back. You are in the consulting room with Dr. Frank Duodu, who is the Chief Superintendent at the Police Hospital in Accra. And you are with me, your host, Dr. Sue. We are discussing about routine medical examination, how often we should do it, at what age group should do certain parts, certain types of medical examination, and what organs in the body are we supposed to check on? Doctor, you're welcome again.
Thank you, Doc.
So now I want to know, how often should the ages between 40 and 60, how often should they do this medical exam? Good. The ones you just mentioned. You mentioned, if you have just joined, he mentioned that between the ages of 40 and 60, you should at least do the liver function test, kidney, some STIs, so is it whether you are sexually active or not, or you can just do it?
Assume that
everybody is sexually active. Oh, we can't take that assumption anyway. But if you are sexually active, you should do some kind of STI test. You should also do full blood count. Actually, that's the first thing that you should do, full blood count, because it's like the military people, the military personnel in your body. So you check how many, are they dying out or are they stronger enough? So you should first do a full blood count, and that will give you some idea of what you should do, whether the level is okay, your HB is okay, and all that, right? Yes. And also we should do pancreatic test. Okay. We should do, if you are a man, you should do a PSA, yes, and then for prostate, and women should do cervical, and then breast, yes, and also HPV, yes, human papilloma virus test. If you don't have it, there is a vaccine for it. So thank you very much for all this information you are giving to us. So how often should we do that?
Great. So here again, it is once every year, depending if you do this and then there are no indicators for us to increase the frequency, then it's once every year. That's how often it should be done.
Once every year. Yes. So if you, after doing it for the first time, you don't see any problem, any alarming problem in any of the tests, yes, then you should do it once every year. Exactly. So should it be right after Christmas, right after shopping Christmas or Easter or a festive season? How? Or on your birthday? How do you advise so that we don't forget?
Great. It will typically depend on your pocket. Usually right after Christmas, people are
you have drained your pocket already.
Yes. But it's good to have it maybe associated with some memorable day. So like
your birthday.
Your birthday could be really good.
You can give yourself a birthday present, exactly, by checking your whole body, because self-care is very important. Exactly. Yeah, so maybe you can do that so that you don't forget after your birthday, the day after your birthday, the next thing is for you to go on a thorough medical examination. If you don't have any problem, any person issue, you do it once a year. So birthday comes once a year.
Exactly.
So we can do that on our birthday as our birthday presents.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Great. So since we usually also want to know some of the other issues to look out for when we are doing, especially from the 40 to 60 years. You see, that's the period that we are most active.
Productive.
Yes. Mm. So as much as possible, you'd want to make sure you are strong, remain productive. So, of course, for you to be strong, you have to look at the things you are eating, things you are taking in. So it's very important for us to pay attention to this. What I wanted to bring in is that it's also from this very period that our bones begin to deteriorate a little bit.
Deterioration of bones?
Yes. It gets a bit weaker. So for some facilities, it may be recommended to you to do what we call the bone density studies.
Okay.
Yes. And it helps, like I said,
bone density.
Yes, bone density studies.
Studies.
Yes.
You are going to study the bone,
from
the head, the skull
to the so that you know. I mean, the thing is that before 40, you might have been doing some of these high risk activities, and you'll be thinking that you are still in the position to do
that.
Yes. So for you to be very sure in your mind about these ones, you want to ask yourself, why do most footballers retire at the age of 39, 40? It's just because of
those are the apropos.
So
the football ages here in Africa.
so it's very important. If you have the means, it's one of the things we also recommend.
Bone density studies. Okay.
That will help you, yes, to know how fit you are in your bones.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So between 40 and 60, mostly you're in your prime age. That's your productive age, and you shouldn't take it for granted. It's important that we do a routine medical checkup, at least on your birthday, so that you don't forget. So, and some of the things that you can look out for or you can investigate into are the liver, the heart. The heart is the BP, right?
Exactly.
And then cholesterol, that's the lipid profile, and the sugar, fasting blood sugar. Yes. So, and many of them, the kidney.
Exactly.
And then bone density studies. Now we have added bone density studies. Yes. Okay. That's good. So let's look at from 60 and above at retirement. If you are lucky, or if grace finds you.
Yes.
I'm being religious.
Yes.
And then you don't find anything, any problem in your body, health status. How many times should one do a medical exam?
So obviously at this stage, you tend to have one condition or the other. So it is recommended that at least once every 6 months, you do this check. Okay, so at this stage. And at this stage, for after retirement, your lifestyle may change a little bit. Okay, so maybe prior to that, you had been a bit more active, moving up and down. But now, you may be a bit sedentary. You may stay back a bit. And so, you have to pay attention to some of these ones. Definitely, by this time, your cardiovascular check, so the BP check, should be a bit more often.
Should be more often than the once a month.
Yes.
You
exactly
suggest.
So if you can do it once every week or at the least once every 2 weeks, that would be very helpful. And let's not be in denial. I know why I say this. Most people check their BP and it's getting high, and they get into denial state that it is not high. Of course, as you
it's not mine.
It's not mine. Oh, I just walked in, so and then,
so
oh no,
I'm panting. So let me relax. But that also can cause.
Yes, it can. But these people, you can give them all the time in the world, it will still be high. And it will
still be high.
Yes, and they may be resistant. And something about BP, it won't always give you the notice that is going to cause you a problem. Because I've heard people go about saying that, oh, me, I don't feel anything in my body.
I was going to ask that.
Yes, I don't feel anything in my body. Oh, I don't have any problem, so I don't think I have BP. And I'm saying that it is one of the reasons why we sometimes, unfortunately, have records of sudden death as a result of high
cardiovascular
BP. Exactly. Okay, so
or cardiac arrest.
Exactly. It shouldn't
arrest you like the police people now.
Oh, we don't arrest. We only catch criminals. So we shouldn't wait for it to give us symptoms before we say that we have the BP.
You have the BP.
Okay. And whilst we talk about the heart, okay, so we mentioned BP, but when we want to fully evaluate the heart, it's not only about the BP. So sometimes when you go as part of this routine medical checkup, it may be suggested for you to do what we call the ECG. It's not the electricity company of Ghana. So this one is about heart. So it's also a bit of electricity, electrical conduction of the heart muscles. So ECG, they put some devices on your chest just to look at how your heart is conducting. It also gives us a picture of how healthy our heart is. And then you may also even be recommended.
Can I just walk in to do ECG?
Yes, typically.
What should I feel before I do such a test?
So ECG like this, you don't have to feel anything. By the time you are feeling something, it means that it's probably advanced a little bit. Whatever might be the problem might have advanced a little bit. So the target is not to feel before. The target is, let's look for the risk factors and then prevent what we might feel. Because if we feel, probably it's because it's gotten a bit bad. So it will be part of the routine checks that could be done for you if you want to assess your heart. Okay.
Now, you mentioned primary prevention,
Yes.
secondary and tertiary. So, and we have looked at the different age groups. So from your presentation, I suppose that most of the preventive, primary prevention is from 40 and below.
Yes.
And then from 40 to 60 is more of like secondary.
Secondary.
And then 60 and above, most people suffer from tertiary.
Okay, so you can say so. You can generally put it in that way. But one of the cardinal evidence or examples of the primary prevention is vaccination.
Vaccine,
Yes.
okay.
And you see, for vaccine, it can, even though we do a lot more in the elementary ages, it could also be a bit at the advanced age.
At the advanced,
Yes.
like which ones?
So, for example, even COVID. COVID just cut through.
Okay, it just came and everybody can.
Yeah, so, and even the HPV vaccination, it could happen a bit in...
So how do you prepare for a routine medical checkup?
Okay, great. So perhaps maybe when we were talking about the after retirement, one thing I should have added was after retirement, because the dynamics are a bit different, one of the things that we look out for is cognitive function. When you say cognitive, how well your brain is able to coordinate affairs. Because as you are aging, brain cells will weaken a little bit. Some of them will die off. So if you do your check at advanced age, it's one of the things that can be done for you to see how well. Yes. So back to your question, earlier question. What was it? Sorry.
I said, how do I prepare for a routine medical?
Very important. So preparing for a routine medical checkup, it's very important to look at it this way. I think what I should say first is what not to do. Not to wait for you to feel something before you go. So
don't wait to feel something in your body.
Exactly.
We should do it once a year if we don't
get the so once we say routine, then get that concept right from the beginning that it is periodic and it is
no matter how old you are and how young you are, you should at least do once a year.
Yes.
Okay.
Then preparing for it. So remember that we said the whole strategy is first to take a medical history. So you have to prepare yourself that where I'm going, they are going to ask me questions about my health. So let's not go and sit there and say, me, I don't know. They ask you this, you say, me, I don't know. If you say you don't know, you are not. It will be difficult for the person to. Great. Yeah. So do a little bit review of your system. How have my system been over this period, so that when the question comes, I'll be able to answer. Then if you have any medical records in the past, please get them together. If you've done any of these routine checks before and you have the records there, get it together. If you were doing it at this particular facility, but now you want to move to another facility, you can get the reports for the previous one and get it together and then go along with this. Then you should also bear in mind that as part of the process, you may be required to do some investigations for which you wouldn't have eaten. Okay. So usually when you're going, you shouldn't eat, if it's possible. And so in that case, then it should be done in the morning. I was just coming to say. Okay. So in that case, you should try and get your appointment in the morning so that it can be. So usually this is what you do to prepare for a medical checkup. Okay. And then of course, make sure that you are following after the schedule.
Okay.
So if you're supposed to have done it by your birthday time, just have that at the back of your mind.
Of your mind that after your
appointment.
birthday. I think that is a very good way of reminding you, so you don't forget. You know your birthday. Everybody knows their birthday, so you don't forget, because if it's your birthday, you know the next day or during my birthday, as you are receiving the wishes, the next thing is for you to, or early in the morning you go for the medical exam before you go and receive your wishes and enjoyment.
Exactly.
So also talking about sedentary lifestyle or sedentary workers, and then people who are active, like maybe security personnel who are very active, and other manual workers. Do we have different or distinct medical examinations that we can do, or we have to do the same things?
Okay. So most of them will be about the same.
So the sedentary people, like corporate workers who always sit in the office, I want to just explain so that everybody gets to know. So people who stay from morning till evening, they don't do a lot of activities in their workplace, and it becomes routine every day. So those are the sedentary.
Yes.
And then the manual and active people who do a lot of active work. Yeah. Are we supposed to do the same medical exam?
Great. So most of them will essentially be the same. The little differences might be those who may have to do the bone density studies because of maybe how active their job demands on their physical body. So they may do a bit more of the bone density studies. Then, of course, if you are sedentary, then your risk factor for cardiovascular conditions is a bit higher. So chances are you may have to do a bit more frequently how the blood pressure, for example, screening, or even the cholesterol screening, or even the sugar screening. Yeah, those ones may be a bit more often for those different group of people.
If I have a family history, is it and other, let's say I have a family history of a particular disease, do I have to be worried about it, or do I have different schedules for the medical exam?
Great.
Let's say obesity or hypertension.
Great. So that's a very important question. So once there is a family history, that means the risk factor is there. So the chances that you may develop may be a bit higher than the person who doesn't have any. Who
doesn't
family.
Have it because of genetics or because of what?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So because of that, your frequency of having to investigate for that condition may be a bit more faster than the other person who doesn't have that. So it's sometimes a challenge that we don't follow much of the family history, our medical history. If we were doing that, the family medical history, it will give us a picture of what. So sometimes, if possible, you want to find out what might have caused medical cause of death for a parent or a grandparent, that kind of thing. If we get to know, it's helpful. So even this, let me use the opportunity to encourage countrymen and women that we should want to know what the medical cause of death. Sometimes we just don't want to know. We just want to know the person has died. And
you mean when someone passes on? Yes. We should by all means find the cause of death.
The medical cause of death. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
If you should do well to, in fact, it's one of the requirements before you can acquire your certificate for burial and all of those things. Yes.
Whether the person dies from home or the person dies from wherever.
Exactly. It's very important. Okay. It's not just for.
But if it's an accident?
If it's an accident, yes, it may the cause of death may be the accident, but it may also have been precipitated.
Maybe cardiac arrest on the road or something. Yes. Okay.
So the person might have been having other conditions. So it may not have been the primary cause of death per se, but might have contributed to it.
Okay.
So if you have that information, it helps. Typically, we don't think about it. We usually feel that it is just for the statistics, but it's also for our own good. So it gives us the family history about.
How about, when even a 120-year-old woman dies, is associated with witchcraftness and my grandmother died at age 114, and somebody asked me, hey, who killed her? What happened?
Yeah, so natural cause of death, right? Yes. But usually you may be able to find one medical condition or the other that might have contributed to it, in which case it helps you to also guard yourself against such a condition.
So what should one do if they realize that their medical checkups are abnormal, the results is abnormal, like it's not within the normal range? What should be the next point of action?
Okay. So in any comprehensive medical checkup, there is also what we call the follow-up actions, or the after event actions. So one of such is those which are normal, by all means it should be communicated to you. So after the session, don't just be satisfied by going and having your lab done and then you go home. You should want to know the findings. If everything is fine, it's communicated to you, and then definitely it should be communicated to you in the next appointment date or what needs to do. So all those which are abnormal, it is expected that it will be mentioned to you, this and that is what we found, and these are our recommendations to you. Obviously, the ultimate decision is yours to take, that you want to do this or you want to do that, but it has to be fully communicated to you with all the options. So some of the options may just be that go and continue what you are doing, but probably do it a bit more often or less. Okay, so if it's about exercise, it could be mentioned to you that, oh, maybe your exercise has been excessive. That's why you are having this one. So if you can reduce it a little bit. But typically it is really having to add on because we don't exercise that much. So it could be said that, oh, can you increase this a little bit?
Exercise.
And then probably if you are not getting guidance for any of the activities you are doing, but even exercise, which is a taught profession, discipline. So you can be directed or advised that go and see this group of people to help you do it this way so you can achieve this result. It could be about diet, in which case it could be recommended to you to see a dietitian, nutritionist to guide you through it. It could be about your even
your lifestyle,
occupational and all of those. All that can be communicated to you. And so then one other thing too could be that maybe your workplace, it could be an avenue for advocacy. Maybe your workplace, they don't have the corporate system of health checks.
Health checks.
Good. It can be recommended to you, and then you send the same message to your employers. And then if probably your where you work, they don't have any medical insurance policy, it can be recommended to you to share with your employers. So definitely something will have to be told you after your session, and you have to take the necessary actions.
Wow, wow. You are in Consulting Room 5. You are watching me and my guest, Dr. Frank Duodu. He's telling us about how we should take routine medical checkups, important, as we take our vehicles to the mechanics and all those places. Yeah. So what final advice would you give to people that we are consulting? You know, there's a consulting room. So, and our viewers are our clients. So what advice would you give to the viewers out there on routine medical exam?
All right. So there is this saying that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. An ounce of prevention
is worth a pound of cure.
Yes.
Okay.
What do we mean by that? We are saying that if you're able to prevent these so many medical conditions that we can't even number, we are very, very likely to prevent the huge cost
that huge pound.
Yes, that goes into having to cure them.
Okay.
Because when we get them, we don't have much to do but to look for solutions to them, and that could be very expensive. So we say that early detection is key. We want to catch them early so that we can control them or eradicate them. So we want to encourage us all. As for preventive medicine, it's sometimes difficult because we are made to think that if I don't feel anything in my system, I don't take any action.
Yeah.
Yes, but in this case, we don't wait to feel something in the system first. Because at the point where we are feeling something, probably it's because it has advanced or complications have set in. So we want to encourage us all, at least once a year, let's do our best to do them. And once you have advanced in age from 60, then we recommend that at least once every 6 months, let's do our best. And we want to also encourage, let's make sure that we reduce self-medication. Okay, if you have any condition now, I think it's quite easy with the support of the National Health Insurance Scheme. It's quite easy to have at least access to our health facilities. If you prefer herbal medicine, there are professional herbal medicine practitioners in our health facilities. If you prefer the allopathic one too, it's there available for us. So let's avail ourselves. Most hospitals now have wellness clinics. So, and most of those ones are walk-in. So you can walk in there. In fact, sometimes there are outreaches. So they come to us. But, I mean, not everybody pays attention to this one. But we want to remain healthy so that we can be productive to serve our mother Ghana.
Let's remain healthy so that we can be productive to serve our mother Ghana. Thank you very much, Dr. Frank Duodu. Dr. Frank Duodu is a chief superintendent and a public health specialist in the
Ghana Police Hospital.
Hey, Mama, me refuse. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Frank Duodu. You said we should be productive for our mother Ghana. Dr. Frank Duodu is a public health expert in the public health department of the Ghana Police Hospital. He is also a police officer, a chief,
Superintendent.
A superintendent,
Chief
superintendent, okay, at the police hospital. All correct, sir. But have you taken a bribe before? This one is behind this. We'll talk about it. Okay, doctor, thank you so much for coming. Viewers, we are encouraged to do our regular medical checkups at least once a year if you are at the productive age, which is 60 and below. But 60 and above, at least you should do twice a year, which is every 6 months. Just remember, if you are from 60 and below, on your birthday, just before you start celebrating, you can just walk into any hospital and do these checkups that he has mentioned. It's very, very important. You said a small ounce is what? Better.
An ounce of prevention.
An ounce of prevention
is worth a pound of cure.
Pound of cure. So it means that early prevention is better than spending so much money to go and cure. So it is encouraged that at least we do our regular medical exam every year, once a year or twice a year if you are 60 years and above. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for all the information you have given to us. And we hope that we'll call you again to come and give us some more insight on our well-being. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching me. Thank you for having me on your screen. I am Dr. Sue, your host for Consulting Room 5 show. Bye. Hello once again and welcome to Consulting Room 5 with me, Dr. Sue. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic that we always look over. We don't care about it. Did you even know how many times you should have medical care, routine medical checkup in a year? We are going to talk about it. We are going to discuss it. It's also called wellness exam or annual physical examination. It is a preventive healthcare visit where a doctor assesses your overall health by reviewing your medical history, conducting a physical examination, and potential ordering lab tests depending on your age and risk factors. The goal is to identify potential health problems early enough on when treatment is most effective. In the studios with me, we have a very important personality in the healthcare system. He is a public health expert who works with a very renowned health facility. After the short break, we will give a short introduction about him. Welcome back. You are in the consulting room with me, Dr. Sue, and Dr. Frank Duodu. He is a public health expert. He works in the Ghana Police Hospital. He is the Chief Superintendent of Police, one of the Chief Superintendents of Police. So all correct, sir. Should I get up to salute? You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
so Dr. Duodu is a public health expert, and he's going to discuss with us what routine medical checkups should be, at which age groups, and age, the sex, whether male, female, and then risk factors that we should consider before we go to the hospital. So, Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you, Doc.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I like how you're so calm, your demeanor. Okay, Doctor, so what is routine medical checkups? When we say we have to do a checkup, we have to go for a review and all that, what's the meaning of that?
Yeah, Doc, thank you, and thank you to our viewers for making time to be with us. When we say routine, in itself tells us that there's some consistency or periodicity with respect to whatever we want to do. And medical checkup, in essence, is for us to avail ourselves so that our body will be looked at medically. That's how I would want to put it as a public health expert, just to break it down for everybody to understand. But in essence, when you walk to the health facility, you are asking that you are not necessarily sick, but you want to be examined or you want to be assessed.
So you are not sick.
Not exactly.
You are not sick.
Not exactly.
You don't feel any pain, nothing, but you just walk into a health center for medical examination.
Exactly.
How many times do we have to do this?
All right. So maybe before we even do the number of times, I think when we get the perspective about medical checkup, it will inform us.
Okay. Okay.
So medical checkup is, let's say, a component of what we call preventive medicine. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when we say preventive in medical care, there are various stages of the prevention. So let me go a little bit detail. We can talk about primary prevention, secondary prevention, and then tertiary prevention.
Okay.
Okay, so usually when we mention this kind of medical checkup, it's more towards the primary prevention. But as we go on, we realize that an aspect of it is also secondary prevention, and to some extent even the
goes
tertiary.
Into tertiary.
Yes.
Okay.
So when we say the primary prevention, what we are saying is that we are looking for risk factors. The situation that when exists may tip you to have one condition or the other. That's what we are calling the risk factors. So we are looking for them. So we are not saying you have the condition, but what may tip you to have a condition, that's what we are looking for. So that we prevent even the condition from happening in the first place. That's the primary prevention. And when we talk about the secondary, then we are looking for early warning signs. We are looking for what will help us to determine early that you are likely to get this condition. So we'll give examples as we go on. And then the tertiary one is you have the condition, but we want to identify the complications and then minimize them or prevent any further disability. Okay.
Wow. So it means that just as we have children, they go to the primary school,
Yes.
they go to secondary,
Yes.
and then tertiary.
Yes.
So primary prevention is when there are no onset of diseases, there are no problems, you don't experience anything, but you think that you should just go in for a medical exam, then you go for it. And then the secondary is when there is a problem, right?
There could be a problem, or you are looking for early warning signs.
Early warning signs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
it's more like, so let me give you a typical example. you can decide to screen for cervical cancer.
Okay.
Some people prefer to call it cervical cancer.
Cervical.
Okay. Whilst you are doing that screening, it doesn't mean you have the cervical cancer, but you want to look for the early signs
so that you can
prevent
it.
Yes.
Or if there are anything, you can treat it
early. Treatment too, yes.
Okay.
So for
that's the secondary.
Exactly. So
in between.
Exactly.
Okay.
There is that component of early treatment and then also early warning signs to prevent the onset. But the primary one is the risk factors. So for example, there is a history in your family that most people usually, let's say, are obese. So in primary prevention, your target will be, I don't want the obesity to get to me. So we put in measures to ensure that you don't get there.
So then you have to do regular medical examination.
Yes.
So every time we are supposed to do it at the level of primary prevention.
Exactly.
So that you don't either have the issue or you are able to treat it early.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But to answer your question now, you're talking about how often that has to be done. So you realize that if you are targeting primary prevention,
right,
then the frequency may be a bit different from when you are tackling the secondary and even tertiary. Yes.
Right.
Now, depending on your age and then depending on your profiling, the risk factors, we will make a recommendation to you how many times in a year. Usually we do the reckoning annually. How many times in a year you have to get that done. So the general advice is, if you are not up to 40 years, it is recommended to you to do the medical checkup once in a year. Okay. And then after you've done the first one, depending on what the findings are, we may now have to schedule you to do it a little bit more often than the once in a year. So that's the general.
Okay. So viewers, up to us, from 0 years to 40.
Yes.
Annually, every year, at least you should do once. What are some of the medical checkups that we can go in for?
So, if I gave you from 0 to 40. But even in that category, there are different groups. Okay, so if you are looking at the children below 12 years, the pediatricians will tell you more, but we have what we call baby checks. Okay, so when you give birth to a child, the child may not be sick, but then there are routine moments that you're supposed to go. And if you do the baby check, there are conditions that or let's say investigations we set out to do. Typically in a health facility, most of us pay a lot more attention to taking blood samples or going to do imaging studies. But the whole process really starts with taking a history.
Taking the medical history.
Medical history.
Okay.
That is very, very important. You telling us about yourself, your medical conditions or observations about your body. You know your body better than
any other person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mentioned this so that we are conscious of it. Let's, as individuals, let's pay attention to our body so that we will be able to narrate exactly the situation with our body. When you have done the medical history, then the healthcare provider will go ahead to do the physical examination. And through the physical examination, it is expected that if it's about a baby, because I am trying to, segregate it into the various age categories. Yes, so it will differ a little bit if it's about a baby or a young adult,
adolescent, and then or young adult and all
exactly.
that. Exactly.
So it will differ a little bit. But for the babies, you are doing head to toe.
Yeah.
You're going to have to examine the whole body.
Because they cannot talk.
Exactly.
So the caregiver has to know the baby and the body, if there are any changes. So that, as you said about the history taken, so that when the healthcare giver is asking for any history, the caregiver can.
Exactly. That's very crucial.
Okay.
And then, because the baby, they cannot talk, you're going to have to pay a little more attention to the physical examination.
Right.
Because they have to look for things for yourself. Yes. And typically, like I mentioned, there's going to be complete blood counts, full blood counts.
Full blood counts.
Yeah, we call it. Yeah. We take sample to look at those ones. And for babies, it would be appropriate if you know their blood group.
Okay.
For baby, it's also appropriate if you know what we call G6PD defect.
G6PD defect.
Yes, it helps us to know what medications to avoid for a baby, and then
at what point should we test for G6PD for babies? So
G6PD as early as possible, but the challenge really is that sometimes getting the sample is the challenge. Yeah. But as soon as you can have access to the blood sample, you should do the test. Yes. Sometimes we wait till we see jaundice before we test for those, but it's part of the preventive baby well checks that we do. Okay.
So adolescents?
Yes, for adolescents, because of their peculiar situation, one of the typical investigations we would want to do, apart from your medical history and all of those, if you are still looking at the investigations, is to test for STIs.
STIs?
Yes, sexually transmitted infections. It's very, very critical. And then also, they have the golden opportunity to screen for some of the early warning signs for some cancers.
Okay.
Okay, so they may not be sexually active, and so issues of cervical cancer may not come up immediately. But if you start early, it's even the better. So apart from the STIs I mentioned, it's also a good opportunity for us to screen them for some of these cancers in there.
So adolescents, young adults, I think they don't have much difference.
No,
they do similar.
Exactly.
And then
the middle-aged adults, that's from like 40 to like 60.
60.
Yes.
So let's pause here.
Sure.
So you are telling us that from 0 to 40 years, at least you should have once in a year, annually.
Yes.
And you have told us from baby, the pediatric age, you should look at the baby well. You should identify her body well so that you give better history.
Great.
Then young adults and then adults, you should also do the full blood count, and then you should also do STIs if the person is sexually active, and other things like what again can you mention?
Okay, so that has to do with some of the cancers.
So like cervical cancer for ladies.
Yes.
Okay.
But for the men, something we don't typically mention is also testicular cancer.
Testicular cancer?
Yes.
In the testicles?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, of course, for the ladies again, this is the time for you to start teaching them about self-breast examination.
Self-breast examination. Yes. Okay.
So they will examine themselves, usually typically looking for lump in the breast.
Okay. Okay.
They'll be able to find, then quickly they inform their healthcare provider.
Because early detection
is very helpful.
Yeah.
There's something I should even mention. One of the very important reasons why we promote preventive medicine is just what you mentioned, early detection and then early treatment. But then again also, when you do the early treatment, you are likely to cut cost.
So the cost.
Yes.
We'll talk about that from the 40 and above before that.
Okay.
Because usually, the 40 years and above, that's where life really begins. There's a life begins at 40.
I get it.
So that's where we have to really emphasize so that at least we know the things that we should go in for. Yeah. So, doctor, as we have said, from 40 to 60 years, 40 to 60, we have a lot of working class. And then there are challenges like parenting, stresses, and so many things that come in there. And so we are exposed to a lot of health conditions. What regular medical examination would you advise that we go in for?
Great. So, whilst we are going to talk about 40, let me quickly chip in this. Even from 30 years, one of the things for now, because of our let's say epidemiological shift, where now we are beginning to see a lot of conditions that we initially thought happened only in the elderly. Now we are seeing a bit of the cardiovascular disease also in the young adults. So the same thing now comes to from the 40 years. Cardiovascular conditions. When I say cardiovascular conditions, or what we call the non-communicable diseases, hypertension, diabetes, and then high cholesterol levels. They are very, very, very serious,
prevalent.
yes, and prevalent in our days. Okay, so from age 40, it's very key for us to pay attention to this. Before 40, it shouldn't ever be that a whole year or even 6 months should pass without you having checked your blood pressure.
Blood pressure.
Your blood pressure, yes.
I thought you said the rest. 6 months.
Blood pressure should be quite routinely checked for.
So we should all get
the BP apparatus, the speak. Well, if you can, but there is a little challenge. Sometimes I think there's not so much standardization and calibration of these devices, so it has the potential to give us false hopes. But whatever it is, if you get it, it is helpful to at least give you an indication that there is something going amiss. And for that matter, you may need to seek care.
So at least within 6 months, you should check your BP. That's what you're telling us.
If you check for once and it is normal, at least for BP every month, once a month.
Every month. Every month.
From 40 years.
We should check our BP every month.
In fact, if you can do it a lot more often, because it doesn't take so much to get this done. Okay. So if you can do it as for the BP, because when you go to most of our tertiary centers.
And this helps with cardiovascular diseases, as you're saying. Exactly. So this helps with heart disease. It helps to check on the heart. The BP checks on the heart. And there are other organs that we can also talk about, like the pancreas that people don't look at.
Great. So
kidney, liver.
Yes. Yeah. So as part of the medical check from your 40s, typically some of the blood works we will do is once again the full blood count. That will give us a
full blood count.
Exactly.
So you go. Can you walk to the hospital and just go and tell a lab or a phlebotomist that you want to do a full blood count?
Yes. For now, initially you would typically have to go through the consulting room and get that one done. But for now, most facilities, if you walk in, maybe you need to get a request. The thing is that when you do some of this in the hospital, they would expect that the interpretation will be given to you. And so that interpretation usually is done in the consulting room.
Yeah.
So what we don't much promote is just get the lab done and then you get the results and you don't even have the interpretation to it. So for most facilities, they have the wellness clinic or centers where you can walk in there, and these processes I'm talking about, they will take you through. Because usually when you go and say, I want this lab done, they'll ask you, is there for
any reason?
Yes. Then they may even make some suggestions. Oh, then don't just do this. Add this one to it. And then when you finish, you have the opportunity of bringing it back to us to explain to you, and then we take it up from there. So that's.
Please continue from your organs. You were mentioning
Great.
liver, kidney, pancreas.
Yes, exactly. So as part of the blood works, the full blood count, then you have to also have a test for your kidney.
Kidney.
Okay, yes, so they will investigate for the kidney. Then they will investigate for the liver as well.
The liver.
And they will investigate for your lipids, cholesterol.
Cholesterol.
Yes.
Lipid profile.
Yes. Okay. Then you are going to have to also check for your fasting sugar. Okay, so
for diabetes.
For diabetes, very, very important to us. So we need to know. Then one of the other prevalent conditions now is also hepatitis B.
Hepatitis B.
Yes, hepatitis B infection, and then C also. These two cause chronic liver disease, which can lead us to having hepatocellular, the liver cancers. So it's very important for us to do those checks. Then once again, it's always recommended to have some of the STIs checked. I know there's a lot of stigma around HIV, but if you check and you know
you're sure.
Yes, then you are very confident. So it's very important to have some of these investigations also done. Then at that age, prostate-specific antigen, so PSA, one of the common prostates that plague men from 40 onwards. And so then you have to, it will also be done for you, or to be requested for you to have your prostate checked.
For men?
Men, yes. Then for the women, once again, you have your cervical cancer done, and then the tests or investigations, and then also pap smear plus HPV. Let me mention the HPV in the sense that it's one of the risk factors. People say it's a cause. There may be a causal link.
Epidemiologist.
So if you test and then you know it's there, then we will have to treat. Other than that, we can recommend to you vaccination against the HPV.
The HPV.
Exactly. Okay.
Can one take a vaccine even if the person is sexually active?
Exactly. In fact, if you are sexually active, so what matters is for us to screen first to be sure that you don't have the infection. Then it will be recommended to you to have the vaccine.
You have mentioned a lot, and I don't want to confuse my viewers. So you said between 40 and 60, we have some tests like full blood count, that is constant.
Great.
And then some kind of STIs.
Yes.
Okay. Liver.
Yes.
Kidney.
Yes.
Pancreas.
Yes.
And for lipid profile.
Exactly.
And then fasting blood sugar.
Exactly.
Okay, so these, what do they do?
All right. So there's another test. So it's quite simple to be done. That is urine investigation.
Urine investigation?
Yes.
Okay.
So all of these, for example, the full blood count gives us a picture as to how your blood, which becomes like the fuel that lubricates all the organs in the system, how effective it is functioning. It gives us a picture if we are having to fight any infection. The blood parameters will help us to tell. It will help us to know also if you have enough blood or not. That is the HB. So that's the full blood count one. Then the liver test, as the name suggests, will help us to know the state of your liver.
Okay.
So that if the liver, which is like a production center in the body, is working well, you will know by doing this investigation.
Okay.
And after the production, the excess, the byproducts will have to be gotten rid of, and that is done by the kidney.
The kidney.
So we do this test for us to see how effective the kidney is. And the urine test also helps us to tell whether there are early warning signs for kidney disease.
So the urine test is basically for the kidney?
For the kidney. Okay. Then, of course, there's also some infection that the urine test can help us to detect.
Wow.
Yes.
Aging is not an easy thing.
It's not. It's not.
Okay, viewers, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll discuss what exactly happens during the routine checkups, and then disease-related checkups that we should look out for the ages between 40 and 60, and then after retirement. Stand by.